every story about Anaiah are the things that I wanted to do with my parents as a kid. So these stories, man, I was always chasing after the rainbow. No one knows where the rainbow is, but Anaiah found it out. She figured it out. And then I have this infatuation with going to space. So I was like, all right, Anaiah's trip to space. It's a good book. It's a good book. Anaiah's road trip. So this happened when my family, I used to go back and forth to see my dad from Memphis, Tennessee. So I go, you know what? I'm going to take my daughter around the country. So it was Anaiah's road trip. It was something I wanted to do with my kid, right? And then we had Anaiah's Haunted Halloween. Now, listen, I'm not the toughest guy in the world. Some stuff spooks me out, right? And this book right here, it definitely spooks out kids, but in a good way. It's a funny, spooky, type of book, right? So that was Anaiah's Haunted Halloween. And one thing that really fascinated me, man, I wish I can swim to the bottom of the ocean, but I can't, right? So I was like, you know what if we create a world that she found where Atlantis is? So Anaiah's Trip to Atlantis was the 5th children's book. And then last but not least, Anaiahs Adventures. This book is a combination of all 5 books in one. Now,
all right. Welcome back to another episode of I Didn't Read Your Book. I am your host, Lutch, and today we've got a very special episode, both something new and something familiar. You may remember from IDRYB 09, Girlfriend versus Wife Duties, our guest, Darshaun McAway. He is back again today. If you caught that episode, you may remember that we, in talking about that book, Girlfriend versus Wife Duties, the topic came up that Darshaun also has a children's book series that follows, the years of his daughter's life. And, we didn't get too far into it because I thought it was an interesting concept, and I figured we could do a separate episode on it. Not to mention that one wasn't necessarily something where you would want to, the topics discussed didn't necessarily jive so much with talking about a children's series. So this one is going to be completely family friendly for the purpose of that we are talking about a children's series. So feel free to have the kids tune in to this one. This one's going to be all clean. And so we've got a couple of the covers here. We've got Anaiah's Trip to the Rainbow. We've got Anaiah's Trip to Space. We've got Anaiah's Road Trip, Anaiah's Haunted Halloween, and Anaiah's Trip to Atlantis. And that is so far, I believe I remember him saying that there was 6 that he had. I could be wrong, but he did say something about holding on and doing 1 per year. So maybe she's only 5 years old at this stage. So, I mean, reading the back of a kid's book is not going to be anything that I expect to really give us much to go off of in general. So I figured we would head to the babyauthors.com website, where it talks about the Anaiahs Adventures series en masse, and we'll go off of that. So diving right into technically not reading the back of the book. Creators Darshaun, Stephanie, and Anaiah are authors of the Anaiahs Adventures series. Baby Authors began as a story time concept for their daughter Anaiah. It is important to us at Baby Authors to continue putting great stories in our children's hands so they know once upon a time life was filled with never-ending adventure. Our company mission is to give parents the ability to publish content on a commercial or personal platform through animation and publication resources. After all, why wait? Babies have stories now. So it, like I said, this was a very cool concept, especially given the context of our last conversation. The let's just say the dating stuff that we talked about was from a 9-year-old book. And so Darshaun, where he was when he wrote that book, certainly without even, I'm sure I'm putting words in his mouth, but just as a matter of being a human and time going on, I would assume that he's a very different person 10 years later. And clearly talking about women and dating and telling children's stories are two very different types of storytelling. So I'm interested to see mainly, the fact that I've already spoken with Darshaun. I kind of have an idea of who he is as a person. And you can too if you check out IDRYB09 after this. So this is going to be a little bit different. As I mentioned, it's going to be a little bit different because we already know the author. But we are coming to this episode from a very different context. And I don't know what's going to happen. Just like always, I'm going in blind and hoping it works out. But knowing Darshaun, I know it will. So let's go ahead and bring him right in. All right. And there he is, the man, Darshaun McAway. How you doing, pal?
I'm doing good. How you doing, Lutch?
Very well. Very well. Thank you for coming back.
Hey, no problem. Thanks for having me back, man. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, I was definitely intrigued when you brought up the fact that you had gone down this road since the works we talked about in the last episode. So we had just read about just the basics of what you'd put on babyauthors.com. That will definitely be linked below. And how this is a family affair, and that it is based around your daughter Anaiah. And so, just taking it from there, why don't you give us the origins, how this came about, and the whole deal.
Okay, so when I got done writing Girlfriend versus Wife Duties, that was back in the year 2012, and I had took a break from writing up until 2015. That's when Anaiah was born. She was born on August 8th of 2015. And the night of her birth, I was thinking like, man, I wasn't really financially prepared. You know, we think that we are as parents, but you're not really expecting like all the, medical bills and things of that nature. So I was like, man, I'm not for sure what I'm going to do. So I'm watching my wife being exhausted from delivering the baby. I see the baby across the way. And I'm thinking to myself, like, man, what am I going to do? I really didn't plan for a third person, So I was like, you know what? I got it. I said, I'm going to write some children's stories about her. And what I had to remember was I was doing some voiceover stuff with headphones, putting it up to Stephanie's belly so she can hear our voice. And I was like, okay, why don't I turn some of those stories into books? So I turned those stories into books, but I wasn't too for sure how to really illustrate them, So I drafted them down. It was like a 10-book children's series, came out with like 10 titles. And I told Stephanie when she woke up, I was like, hey, I got this idea. She was like, well, I say, why don't we start a children's publishing company for Anaiah? Because I said I was already writing books. I know how to do it for myself. I say, why don't we start one for her while she's an infant? And as she gets older, by the time she's 18, whatever age she wants to take the money out, she'll just be able to take the money out. And Stephanie was like, yeah, sure, whatever, right? And she was like, okay. So after that, later that night, she was like, why don't we call it Baby Authors? And I was like, yeah, why don't we call it that? So I, did the whole thing with babyauthors.com. We've been rocking and rolling for the past 6 years. And every story about Anaiah are the things that I wanted to do with my parents as a kid. So these stories, man, I was always chasing after the rainbow. No one knows where the rainbow is, but Anaiah found it out. She figured it out. And then I have this infatuation with going to space. So I was like, all right, Anaiah's trip to space, And
that was the one that was the one that piqued my interest the most, because I'm the same way. Just space.
It's a good book. It's a good book. Anaiah's road trip. So this happened when my family, I used to go back and forth to see my dad from Memphis, Tennessee. So I go, you know what? I'm going to take my daughter around the country. So it was Anaiah's road trip. It was something I wanted to do with my kid, right? And then we had Anaiah's Haunted Halloween. Now, listen, I'm not the toughest guy in the world. Some stuff spooks me out, right? And this book right here, it definitely spooks out kids, but in a good way. It's a funny, spooky, type of book, right? So that was Anaiah's Haunted Halloween. And one thing that really fascinated me, man, I wish I can swim to the bottom of the ocean, but I can't, right? So I was like, you know what? What if we create a world that she found where Atlantis is? So Anaiah's trip to Atlantis was the 5th children's book. And this is a good book, by the way, too. So all these books are like great for you to read with your family, look at the illustrations, talk about the story, find out I'm that type of parent that's I'm an educating parent, but there is no right or wrong answer. It's kind of like, tell me what you think it is, and you go, okay, well, why do you think that? So I'm that type of parent. And then last but not least, Anaiahs Adventures. This book is a combination of all 5 books in one. Now, I did that because when I wrote the business plan of starting from the origin, what I found out was I need to figure out how we're going to do this year by year, because I wanted to still be present in her life, but not so much with business, So that's how the Anaiahs Adventures baby authors thing kind of started. I was trying to find out, how do I put money in her pocket without her working. So that's how it started for us.
Gotcha. That's very interesting. Because I was also I had remembered that you'd mentioned something about 6 titles, and then I was looking and I'd seen the first 5, and then the Anaiahs Adventures being the collection. And so you also had mentioned that you have 10 titles,
Yeah.
but you're looking to release them with as she grows as.
Well, what we're thinking about is, if the demand for the books keep on growing the way it is, we're just going to keep on releasing a book a year.
Mhm.
The next title would be title number 7, which is Anaiah's safari trip, and then there's like 8. Anaiah goes to the playground. This is all in transition of her growing up and being able to be around children and stuff like that. And Anaiah's time travel and things of that nature. So we're not 100% for sure if we're going to release it because of all the merchandise. Excuse me. Because of all the merchandise, the books are steady, but the merchandise is taking a toll of its own.
Mm. Gotcha. And so what exactly what's the angle? Because I mean, I haven't read a children's book since I was a child.
Right.
So what is different overall about writing to other adults versus writing for children?
Okay, so the thing about writing for children is you have to put yourself, it's so hard to do, but once you get the hang of it, you'll get it. You have to put yourself in the place of the parent trying to
Okay.
educate the child. So it's not so much as the child is reading the book themselves, it's more so the parent is going to read the book, but does your child comprehend it? So for me, in order for me to get my point across, I had to do it with fun. That's the only way I can get across to my cousins, my nephews, my daughter is through fun. Because when you educate too harshly, they're like, okay, this is boring. But if you do something fun while educating them, like, hey, did you know that if we jump here, we can probably go this far to the moon? That type of deal. And they go, okay, well, I'm going to jump to the moon today. So when you're writing for a kid, with the parent being the person that's going to be the consumer to purchase it, you have to think, okay, well, how do I make this parent have fun reading it to the child? So that's how I had to do it.
Gotcha. And so, I mean, I guess as a parent, that's probably a little bit easier than what I'm trying to calculate. And
Yeah.
is there? I would imagine though that there are a lot of, or at least some number of writers of children's books who aren't parents. And I guess that being a parent would just give you that extra edge of I know what I'm looking for, so I know what other parents are looking for.
Right. I tried to write children's books before I got into, before I became a parent, and it wasn't genuine enough. It wasn't authentic. Now, you got to
Say
keep in mind that. Go ahead.
no, I was gonna say that you got to write what you know, and you didn't
Yeah.
know yet.
Yeah, right, right. You got to keep in mind that the authors who did write children's books and they didn't have kids, they had a survey team where they would write the
Mm,
book and survey it to the children. So in order for me to bypass that survey step, being a parent, you kind of get engulfed with, hey, you know what? I know what it is to have fun. I remember doing this, and then on top of that, okay, well, how do I make the illustration stand out? How do I develop my own character? So in order for me to stay away from copyright infringement or any type of plagiarism, I said, well, I'm just going to focus on my family individually. I'm going to make us like the thing, so people
mm,
can really see us. Because I'm gonna say this, man, I got a little upset with Mickey Mouse, because when you think of Mickey Mouse, um, mice or rats, they're rodents. They carry major diseases, but Disney did a clever thing by making him look like he's just this wholesome mouse, right? So I was like, this it's not even, it's like Mickey Mouse isn't even a real thing. And I say, here, I got my daughter. I said, well, how do I blow her up like Mickey Mouse, type of deal. And I figured out how to do it, which was connecting with the largest retailer in the world, which was Walmart. That was the only way I could propel my family to the next level by saying, okay, well, forget Mickey Mouse. I see what he did, but how do I do that for my child? So
Oh, gotcha. And so I would imagine that each book has really one central theme or one central message. Is it would you call it educational, or is it more just about stoking the fires of that type of thinking through entertainment?
it's both. It's educational because I intentionally put words in there to make the parent say, hey, why don't we go down and why don't you write this down? Or why don't you spell it for me type of deal. And it's adventurous. I want kids to be in their household setting and take a sheet and put it over their bed and pretend like they're going to space. Anaiah does that all the time. The space book is her absolute favorite. So it's educational, it's adventurous, but here's the biggest thing. It's the biggest thing, man. Because we don't get time back, it's a time spender. You're spending it with your child. You go.
Mm.
I intentionally made the illustrations like a movie. I want you to go page by page and just take yourself into the book. If you ever remember, I'm not for sure. I'm just going to ask you if you do. If you ever had a imaginary friend, I remember having one, right? Just a person I probably made up. And I was like, you know what? I forgot that place when you become an adult. You imagine this world of, hey, I just want to have fun. I don't want to come out of it. I don't want to go to sleep. I don't even want to eat food. I just want to go have fun, talking to your toys, all that type of deal. That's what type of books these are.
Oh yeah, and I don't know that I don't think I had an imaginary friend per se, but as I've talked about many times on this podcast, that when I was young, I really was into reading, and that immersive aspect of it really made the difference because now as an adult, looking back on the types of stories, whether it's reading or whether it's TV or whatever it is, the type of story is almost not as important as the level of engagement that it elicits. And obviously, if there's a story about something that like I'm a UFC fan, so if there's going to be a UFC movie like that, what was that new movie, Bruised, with Halle Berry and the actual UFC flyweight champion. I was brought into that because of the fact that I'm a fan, and the actual UFC was a part of it, the actual champion, actual people, all that kind of stuff. And then at the end of the at the end of the day, I thought it was a good movie, but it wasn't quite what I expected, and for that reason, it wasn't as immersive. And so I think I would, going back knowing what it is, I would probably enjoy it more. But because of that expectation, and because the world I was looking for wasn't really, the table wasn't set for me to something that really resonated with me, even as a fan. And then there's other things that, for example, I've never held a gun. I've never gone hunting, but there's this show with Steve Rinella, the Meat Eater show, and it's just a hunting show. And for whatever reason, I am so enamored with it. And he's just a good storyteller, and he'll take you on a hunting trip, and most of it is him just walking around the wilderness and looking through binoculars at a deer or an elk or something that looks pretty much like a deer or an elk. But the storytelling creates an experience where you're there and you're part of it. And even as somebody who's not a hunter and somebody who isn't really much of a nature buff, I can almost live vicariously through the passion that this guy has in the stories that he is telling. And so I guess if the purpose is the priority is matched in entertainment and education for all the reasons that we just talked about, how do you find that balance?
So the way I find that balance is to really dig deep inside myself and say, you know what, if I was a kid, what would it be like for me to share this moment with my dad? So I kind of always revert back to like being with my parents. So every time I wrote these books, I was thinking like, okay, would I say this if I was a kid, or what am I going to say to my daughter? Because you got to keep in mind that these books, I wrote these books practically what 10, maybe like 10 years before she was born. You see what I'm saying?
Mm.
Because I wrote these the night that she was born. And I just so happened to fine tune them and do the illustrations. So I was trying to figure out, am I going to say this to her when she's 2 years old, 3 years old? So I was, I'm 10 years ahead of myself type of deal. So I was trying to figure out, okay, well, how do I bring it back full circle? Would I say this to my dad? Would my dad say anything to me like this? And I was like, no, yeah. So you know what? Let me just pull it from the heart and just tell this story. And most of it, if not all of it, is kind of in a poetic type of way. It rhymes.
Mm.
The Anaiah's Trip to Space is a sing along. So imagine writing a sing
Mm.
along book, but if a person picks it up and read it, they're reading it as is. That was very difficult because you're supposed to sing a tune to it. But if you read it, you still understand where I'm coming from.
Mm.
So, it was just a place, man. Honestly, what I could say is it was a place of writing these stories that came like straight from my heart of being a father, seeing the process of how she was born and staying in that moment and realizing that if I don't stay happy for myself, I'm not going to achieve what I'm trying to achieve. For me, if I ever caught myself in like being sad or being frustrated, nothing gets done. But when I'm happy, rocking and rolling, I was cranking out those stories. I was so happy to see her, man. I was just cranking out those stories. This is the thing. And then a couple of days later, wrote the business plan. And in that business plan, we had everything from like merchandise, socks, watches, shoes, like stuff like this. Like say, this was written down, 6 years ago. Because the
So
whole
great.
goal was for me to turn the books into a movie. So I have yet to crank out the animation, but I'm in the process of working on it right now. So everything
Very
that
cool.
you guys see me doing, man, I wrote this down the night that she was born. So to answer that question, just really kind of staying in there in my moment and not paying attention to anything outside the world, and that's what worked for me.
And I think on that same note, you brought up the issue of plagiarism, and I can only imagine in writing children's books, there's only so much that you can really draw on just because a child's experience is going to be very limited. And so by making your own story what you're writing about, it kind of shields you from having to worry about that. And not that not plagiarism per se, but more along the lines of parallel thinking of, oh, I wrote this story and it just so happens that there's five other stories that basically are the same thing. And I'm sure there's similarities, and that I think just speaks to, the in general, the values that we want to bestow upon our kids generally are relatively the same. um
Let me give you
I,
an example. The Magic School Bus, right? The
mhm.
Magic School Bus. Honestly and wholeheartedly, when I wrote Anaiah's Trip to Space, I wrote it, in my own space. It took me about 3 days to kind of fine tune it. When Anaiah was old enough to really kind of comprehend watching the Magic School Bus, they came out with an episode going to space, and it mentioned the same things that were in my book. And I go, wow, it's different because they're talking about more educational purposes, but the things that we talked about in the type of order was still in there. And I was like, man, I said that's kind of too close for comfort, you
Right.
know. But at the same time, I can't get on the Magic School Bus because the Magic School Bus, that was an episode that came out when I was a kid.
Right.
So my mind started going, well, did I kind of like unconsciously remember something that happened when I saw it, type of deal. And when I spoke to my wife, we watched the episode and then we read the book. She was like, "Well, no, our book is different because we're talking about family." In that episode, they're talking about exploring space. Anaiah's Trip to Space is about a little 2-year-old kid not wanting to pay attention because they call it the terrible twos, always saying no to everything. She steals a spaceship from NASA. She goes up into space and realizes that space is just this, it's pretty, it's dark, but where's my mom? Where's my dad? There's
Mm.
nothing to do up here. It's only exploring, but who am I going to explore it with? Because we often think that, hey, I'm just going to go out here on my own. I'm just going to be by myself. I'm going to be self-made. No one's going to tell me what to do. But then when you're by yourself, you have no one to talk to. You have no one to answer to. But who are you sharing your time with? So she decides to come back home and realizes that, what, I'd rather be around my mother and my father. You know.
Yeah, and that's definitely some of the darker aspects of where that leads to. That type of thinking is kind of stuff that we addressed in the last episode. And so you're definitely somebody who has the right mindset to address that kind of stuff. I would think that somebody who has your mindset would be exactly the type of person that you would not only want raising a daughter in this day and age, but doing the kind of work that you're doing. Because I really do. You can tell just by through screen. I'm not even in front of you, but you can tell just by the way you're talking about it that it is something that you're not only very passionate about, but it's something that you've figured out. It's something that you've not to say that, again, I haven't read the book, so I could say, not to say that you're the best children's book writer ever. You might be, but the ideas the ideas of how to deliver messages to kids, I think is probably, again, correct me if I'm wrong, but that seems like it would be the hardest part of actually writing a children's book, and not the prose itself. I would imagine that's a little bit on the easier side.
Yeah. No, it's difficult. It came to me easy because maybe I was desperately looking for a solution to taking care of her. Because
Mm.
when you become a parent, I think one of the biggest things, and this may be just me, you don't want to be a disappointment to your child, as they get older. Because I see some things in my parents that I go, man, I wish they would have did this with me more, but at their time when I was growing up, they couldn't. So what's my excuse? We live in a totally
Mm.
digital age. People can make money by never leaving their homes. There's different type of financial currency now. So it's like, okay, what's my excuse for not being present? What's my excuse for not coming out with the best product possible? What's my excuse for not putting money aside for my child when, like, there's an ample amount of money out here? So I came from that place of, I said, you know what? I'll let everybody else make excuses. I'm just going to keep my head down to the ground. I'm going to make this thing happen, and I'm going to be present. Now, the reason I talk about being present is because of this. When I used to go visit my dad was doing construction, right? And he was a type of father that would say to me, "One day you're going to step in my shoes," but he never did ask me, did I like doing construction? It was a natural ability to do stucco, which is like basically styrofoam, cement, kind of mixing it together and making this beautiful work of art of a construction building. But I wasn't into it. I had drawing aspirations. I had speaking aspirations. I wanted to be a person that was well put together. I just didn't want to do construction. So in that, I perfected it, learned how to do it. But I say, when I have a family, I'm not going to push anything on my child. I'm going to find out what is it that they really want to do. And that's something that my dad never really asked me. He never asked me, hey, what is it that you really want to do so we could focus on that? He was more so pushing me into the greatness of what he thought was going to be great. I've always said to myself in writing these books, she doesn't have to step into the company. I want her to use the money. What I learned growing up when I graduated high school at 18, I got congratulations. You can go get a job. My counterparts, my classmates, some of them graduated with a financial head start. 18 years of their parents putting away their child tax credit. I came
Yep.
out with $0, had to go get a job. So in my mind, I go, well, I'm going to do a lot more than just a child tax credit. I'm going to start her something and put the money away for her every year, every month. Every time she sells a book, sells a sock, sells a shoe, the money's going directly to her. Now think about it. When you turn 18 years old and your parents say, "Hey, congratulations. Here's this checking account, savings account that we've been doing for you for 18 years. We taught you how to spend money. We taught you how to manage money. You don't have to step into the company, but just don't spend all the money at once." that's going to be a well-off kid. That's a financial head. You're going to be ahead of the game instead of trying to catch up with the game. So that's what I was
Absolutely.
trying to do.
Absolutely. And I'm somebody who was among those very lucky people. And I didn't even realize it at the time, really, until later on, midway through the time I was in college. And I went to a private school, I went to Rider University, and my dad was able to pay my way through. So I was, he put me through college, and then I came out with a degree and no debt. And I didn't realize how much of an advantage that really was. And the exactly what you're saying is what I think that specific opportunity was granted to me by my dad, because I didn't necessarily make the most of that opportunity financially. I'm now I'm going to be 32 in a couple weeks, and given that head start, I could be a lot better off, but I'm not. I'm doing fine. And with that, I was able to take the time to have real life experiences, make my own mistakes, and some bigger than others, but with the trust that I've been brought up the right way, and I've been set on the right path. Even with all the mistakes I did make, I was able to come out the other side and make something of myself. And I'm still in the process of that, of course, but it's something that I don't think that is highlighted enough. And there's so much talk about the issues with people not being able to move up, and generational wealth and income inequality, all this kind of stuff. And at the end of the day, it really comes down to, in my opinion, individual and personal accountability and responsibility. And so for you to be thinking this far ahead for your child, especially not having that for yourself, is something that's again, just so sorry to interrupt your podcast experience. I just want to remind you, if you're enjoying what you're watching, please hit the like button and subscribe for more content. And if you really love it, there's some support links in the description. I would love if you could help out the channel. And back to the show. Super honorable. And you're absolutely right that, by even not to put any bad thoughts, but even if she does turn 18 and she takes some of that money and she doesn't use it in the best way, then it's still life lessons, and it's not money that she doesn't have to burn. It's there for, and it just like you are saying that you didn't necessarily want to go into construction, even though that would be a very solid and stable career path for the most part. It's that's not just what life is about. And I think that's what you're creating for Anaiah with this whole endeavor.
Right. And as a 6-year-old, I get a chance to talk to her, right? And I ask her, and she doesn't bring up anything about publishing, right? She talks about everything else aside from publishing. So I noticed that, and I go, okay. I say, well, sweetheart, one thing you're never going to get away from is talking to people. I say, even if you have to go work for somebody else, you're still going to have to communicate with people some sort of way, whether you think it's through the computer or in person. So I have already prepared my heart to know, like, okay, well, she may not step into this. But that's the beautiful thing about writing children's books. The amount of years it takes for the copyright to, I guess, diminish. Even after I'm out of here, it's still going to keep on making money. That's how much momentum has taken on with this whole thing. Like, I don't even have to promote. We like, it's the promotion of what we're doing now is, it's like kind of said and done. It's more
That's
so me
awesome.
just getting on, and hey, it is what it is. Because what happened was, when I had approached Walmart, I got a chance to talk to the vice president when he was coming out. I bumped into him, right? Purposely. I didn't know who he was anyway, but I bumped into him and I said, "Hey, how do I get my children's book inside of Walmart?" And he was like, "Well, tell me more about your book." So I did the whole pitch, and he says, "Well, I'm the vice president of Walmart. My name is James Cameron. Um, do you have a business card?" I said, "Yes, I do." Took my business card, and he said, "I'm going to get you in contact with the book buyer." Now, in that story, I was telling him how I'm trying to prepare a history, a life for my daughter as she gets older. And that's what made him give me the deal. He has children. He understands. He understood my entrepreneurship of me approaching this big company, which the way I did it, you're not supposed to do, right? You have to have a meeting with somebody. But this is way before COVID, right? And in that, he can see that I was serious, and there was a lack of what he considered to be African American children's books inside of Walmart stores. So that's what gave us the edge. So we had a like kind of remotely like an exclusive deal with Walmart. It's never going to go away. It's going to always be there. I'm situated for the rest of my life. The day we got the deal was the day I stopped, like honestly and wholeheartedly, I stopped worrying about a lot of stuff. I stopped worrying about is somebody going to cancel me or if I'm never going to pay my bills. That's over with.
That's awesome. That's the dream. That's the dream. And so the I don't I know that Walmart has a pretty good selection of books, but as I was mentioning I think I actually said this in the end of the last episode after our conversation that Barnes and Noble is one thing, but there's only so many books in Walmart, and so they're much more selective. And even though they're not, necessarily what you might think of Amazon or Barnes and Noble when you think books, being in Walmart, I think, is a higher level of achievement in and of itself. And I'm sure you're being
Yeah.
compensated for that very nicely. And so that's a real feather in your cap. I mean, I can't imagine what the like you say that you didn't do it the way you're supposed to do it, but I can't imagine how selective that process really is. And so for you to really to be out there, that's a real badge of honor.
Yeah, thank you very much. I had the absolute pleasure of actually bringing in Anaiah on that deal. She was about 6 months, going into 7 months old. We're sitting in there with the book buyer, and the book buyer is read over the book. She had an entire week to read over it. It's Stephanie, Anaiah. We're sitting in there, and the book buyer is telling us the whole process of how this multi-hundred-billion-dollar company works. And in that in that process, she says, "Hey, Darshaun, um, listen, we companies like yours, we make you guys go out of business extremely quickly." She say, the deals that we do, we'll put you out of business by next week. So I'm in there, I'm looking at my wife, I'm looking at my daughter, and I go, okay, this isn't going well. I say, well, I'll tell you what, here's our sales before we got to you guys. Why don't you put me in the stores that are in the urban demographic? And if I start doing well, branch me off into some of the more, commercial, stores.
So
And
when
I
they
said, also, go
when
ahead.
they said that they would and meaning like they would buy out a company like yours, and is that what they
No,
meant?
no, what happens is, so with books, with any sort of book, even including magazines, Walmart has a 90-day probation period. And however many books they order from you from the wholesale rate, they, basically like let's say it's 60,000 units. And let's say Walmart gives them to you, you sell your books for $1, so that's $60,000, right? Whatever you don't sell in 90 days, you have to give them their money back, and they're going to also return the books back. So now you're gonna
Mm.
you're gonna be left with all these books, and you have no money, right? You
Oh
just got
wow.
a lot of inventory. Happens all the time, and that's not just with books. That's with every product that's in their shelves.
Oh
Every
wow.
single product in their store, they do deals like that. Um, but with books, typically you would go out of business if that's what the deal is going to be. So
Gotcha. So
I
they
know,
were saying, that they were just saying you're probably not going to succeed.
right,
And
exactly,
through that deal, that you'd just be left up with a bunch of paid for books and a bunch of inventory. Gotcha.
exactly. So what I did was I said, well, listen, how about you make us available online, since you guys have a very strong online presence. So keep us online and just put me in a select stores out of your 4,000. Put me in the urban demographic, and then if I'm doing well, if I'm staying consistent enough, go ahead and just start piecing me into other stores. And she loved that. She loved that deal because it didn't require them to buy so many books from us and to make a big return. because I was trying not to give the money back, of course,
Definitely.
and in that, I'm looking at my daughter and we're in this meeting and I'm looking at the book buyer and I'm like, you know what? She just changed our lives forever, and we've been doing business with Walmart for the past 6 years, and,
That's
and, and
fantastic.
trust me, being inside of Walmart stores is a huge deal. That's my claim to fame. Once I got a chance to do that and I saw that how other people fly from India, people fly from India, people fly from Africa to pitch their products just the way I did, but I skipped a whole line of people and met the vice president. And then the vice president gave me a good word with the book buyer. See the book, and I have a picture. I've never, well, did I post? I might have posted it. I have a picture of the vice president coming back the day we had the meeting to shake my hand because he knew I was going to get the deal.
That's awesome, man. That's really cool. And that I'm sure he saw the same thing that I'm seeing, and it's definitely very 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 clear that this is a great idea, that you have thought this out and all that good stuff. And so what do you think that obviously you foresaw the value in having Anaiah there. What do you think, seeing that type of interaction and seeing how you handled that, and seeing how you flip the whole dynamic of the meeting? What do you think that did for her?
Oh, well, right now, me and her, well, all three of us, we have a podcast, a baby authors podcast, and sometimes we do video. And what I've noticed from my interactions of doing business and taking her with me and all that type of stuff, she is very, very competent when it comes to communicating. She gets it right away. I mean, she gets it right away. She's not too good with her numbers yet, but as far as selling the product to make it, to give you the incentive of why you should buy it, she understands it. I've always talked to her and telling her you have to give people an incentive to buy it because people work hard for their money. So her being there around me doing business, man, she's like a natural at it. Because I didn't want her to be nervous. I used to be nervous talking to people, because I thought I was going to say the wrong thing. I didn't know. I didn't know how to sell, and then I started realizing, okay, how do I get money from people? Because these people they got the money that I want. So how do I get it from them?
Mhm.
And I started realizing if you have to give people an incentive because they work extremely hard for their money, but put yourself in their shoes. If somebody approaches you and wants you to buy a bottle of water for $15, okay, well, what type of water is this? You know, and what is this water going to do for me type of deal? So with Anaiah seeing that, she is like a phenomenal communicator, man. Phenomenal. I love doing podcasts with her. She only wants to do a podcast with me when she wants to buy her own toys. I pay her $1 a minute. So
That's great.
yeah, on our podcast, they're about 10 minutes long. So, the longest she ever did with me was probably like 52, was like 52 minutes. And I pay her right on the spot. So she's like, hey, daddy, I saw a toy that I want. Let's do a podcast. So she's a phenomenal communicator. That's what it did for her. She can communicate extremely well.
Oh, and I think one of the most impressive parts about all of this is how much you have mapped out how far this goes. Because I think it would be, just the idea of having, her be the center of the story, and having it be about, her and your family and all that, in and of itself is a very marketable idea. But taking it beyond that, and the watches and socks and clothing and toys and the podcast, all that kind of stuff, I mean, it almost seems like it comes to you naturally, that it's like, oh, do this, do that, do that, do that, do that. And did you always have this entrepreneurial mindset, or was this something that you kind of stumbled over at first, and now you've always been good at it, huh?
No, and I've always been good at it. And I had to go back and think, when did I start? I started when I was 16. I used to go to Sam's Club, or either it was Costco's, and they would sell the candy. They would
Mhm.
sell the candy, the Reese's and the Butterfingers and stuff like that. And my grandmother had a membership, and I would say to her, I say, "Hey, Granny, can you, buy me this candy? I'm gonna sell it in school." And the first thing she asked me was, "Are you supposed to do that?" I said, "I don't know, but I'm not gonna tell anybody." So she bought me some candy, and I told her, I said, I'm going to give you the money back because I'm going to sell the candy for a higher price. Now, here's the thing that I don't know if I heard it somewhere, but I'm going to say that I didn't. When I saw that a product was already established, I knew that selling the product was going to be an error on me. If Reese's cups have been in business for over 100 years, if I can't sell the Reese's cups, then that's a problem with me because they've already been available. And
Right.
I knew that at 16. And the only reason you know why? Excuse me. I know why I knew that. My dad was teaching me about business, and he was telling me that when things are already established and you try to resell it, it's on the person themselves, you
Mhm.
know. So I started off selling candy. My second business was I used to sell umbrella hats, right? Umbrella hats. And then I got into my own t-shirt company. And then fast forward, I started doing books, condoms. Um, I got my own wine, of course,
Hmm.
children's books, the watches, just I have a whole slew of things, man.
Oh, very interesting. That's so funny because I would have been your number one customer with the candy. When I was in high school, I had such a sweet tooth, and it's not like my parents were like no sugar, but it wasn't something not having sugar around the house was not a big thing. So I would go to school, and there would be a couple of kids who had the fundraiser boxes, and I would just load me up. Oh man,
Yeah.
I definitely did some damage to my teeth in those years.
I had
And
two book bags. I had one with my school books, and the other bag I had created like a cooler box inside of it because the chocolate was starting to melt
mhm.
after a while. I was like, oh God. So I had two book bags, one with my books, one with the merchandise.
That's
That was fun
brilliant.
time.
That's brilliant. And so you've talked a lot about the illustrations and how big of a part of the experience those are, and eliciting that immersive feeling. So do you do them yourself? Do you have an illustrator? How does that work?
Absolutely. I do these myself. My wife and I, we do these. We do these illustrations. Now, here's what happened. This is what happened. We did the first book ourselves, and then we had hired someone to just basically craft the rest. But I give the instruction on what to do. And if I don't like something, I fine tune it myself. Or if my equipment fails, I'll send it back over and say, hey, can you finish this up for me? We got to go out of town type of deal. So, yeah, we do all the illustrations ourselves. We're not perfect, but we try to do the best we can, you know. But it's a children's book, and kids aren't necessarily paying to all the imperfections. Only I am as a business owner. I'm looking at, oh gosh, my eyeball is crooked or something like that. A kid is looking at, oh my gosh, there's a ghost, flying in the background, and there's a clown trying to give me this cake. So yeah, we have a staff of employees. At this point, a lot of times things get overwhelming for us, and we can't, do everything. So we kind of do it ourselves, fine tune it. We started off doing them ourselves, and then we kind of, I wouldn't say outsource it. We have like 5 people that work for us, and whenever we want to do another book, we just say, hey, bring up those files. Let's see what we can do. Here's what the story is. Go ahead and do your thing. So yeah, we do all the illustrations ourselves.
Because you did mention that that was something you had been interested in since you were a kid,
Yeah.
and so I have always been, I'm a creative type of dude, but music is where my imagination goes. I can imagine a whole song in my head and get it out into the actual song, but like I'm heavily tattooed, but almost none of my tattoos were designed by me. I usually will bring an idea or a collection of ideas to the artist because my brain just doesn't work like that. And so what is it that you look for in these illustrations that you think sets it apart from not good illustrations?
Okay. So for me, I'm going to show you something. Yeah, I don't know if you're going to catch it, but we'll see. What was going to set me apart from everybody else in the first place was the fact that I intentionally grew Anaiah up year by year. So I was trying to make sure I cleverly crafted how she looks as a baby to where she is now. This is when she was 5 years old. This is when she was 6 months. You see the
Mm,
difference?
yeah,
So that's
definitely.
what that's what I was trying to do. I was trying to make sure how do I get these pictures to like absolutely look like us, type of deal. And I had to teach myself how to draw. I didn't go to school for it. I was going to what I used to do was go to the dollar store and get children's coloring books, and I would keep on tracing and tracing and tracing until I can do it on my own. And then I would look at a picture of my family and I would trace it, and I'll say, okay, so I know how to draw freehand. And I guess, well, freehand is looking at a picture. So I know how to draw freehand good enough to where I'm like, okay, it looks good, but maybe I need somebody else to kind of fine tune it who went to school. That's why I say
Mm,
we had hired somebody. So we did the illustrations, but there are some people that fine tuned it for us and made it pop a little bit more. There's only so much I can do, but we do, just so nobody won't try to get in over us. I say, well, I did these myself. So yeah,
right.
so that's what I look for. I look for the authenticity of our facial features to make sure that you can definitely tell that, oh yeah, that is his daughter. Oh yeah, that is him.
Gotcha. Yeah, no, I definitely see the difference in the way she's aged. Her hair definitely makes a difference in the way that she's viewed. And so with each story, balancing the education with the entertainment, how you mentioned that you will put bigger words that will spark a discussion, but what is the so that on the educational front, what is your main through line to I guess like test, like, is this something that is entertaining? Is it, do you go through Anaiah herself? Is it how does that process work?
Okay, if I think I understand your question. What I was doing was making sure that at some point when you read this book to your child, and when they start to learn how to read themselves, that they can read it back to you. That's the educational point for me, is the fact that they're able to say, they can look at the book and identify the words because you've been reading it to them for so long. You may think they memorized it, but they didn't. They actually are, looking at it. So that's the through line for me, was making sure, and everybody knows this. Well, people who follow me, if your child isn't able to read this book back to you, you did something wrong as a parent. There's no
Mm,
ifs, ands, or buts about it. You can't put it on the school system. It's on the parent. Why? Because they're in your house. That's your child. Yeah, you're sending them off, but if they're not getting, if they're not being productive in the world, you have to revert it back to yourself. Why is my child acting up? Why can't my child read this? Like, what am I? Okay, you know, I will cut anything off the moment my daughter says to me, "Hey, daddy, can we go play? Can we go do this?" Yeah, absolutely. Because she's going to remember that more so than anything. My dad took the time to do this with me. So if you're not spending that time with your child, especially when it comes down to reading, is by far to me one of the most important things. You need to kind of take a look at yourself and say, okay, well, what type of educating am I giving to my child? Yeah, I'm sending them to school, but how am I educating them? You know.
right,
So
right.
that's the through line. That's the through line for us, is making sure your kid is able to read the book back to you.
Gotcha. And yeah, definitely the entertainment factor for them has to be there for them to have that desire to go back through the stories and relive it again, that immersive experience. When it is something that's more than just a story, when it's something they can live and embody, then it's something they'll want to do over and over and over. That's really
Yeah.
cool. Um,
And, and let me say this just real quickly. Another thing too for you, people who are going to be watching, the parents. What I was doing, man. I was narrating these stories. So when I was reading them to her, I'll be all extra with it. You know what I'm saying? I just, that type of deal. To keep her interested, to show her that, hey, I love reading with my dad. He always takes me to another place. So I swear, I think she thinks that the kitchen is space because I used to be in the kitchen all the time. So every time I go into the kitchen, she thinks that we're like in outer space somewhere.
that's awesome. That's awesome. Oh, to have the imagination of a child once again. That would be great. So where do you see this? How far do you see this going? Because obviously, the plan is to keep writing as she gets older. But obviously once she's 12, 13, 14 years old, it's not really going to be about a child anymore.
Right. So roughly about 10, when she's about 10 years old, I'm pretty sure she's going to phase out of it a little bit, and she'll be more so into the business aspect of it because she loves to um she loves to count money. I don't know where she get that from. Maybe from me. But when she's about 10, She'll probably be done with it. But what I had to do cleverly was craft this company to still keep it afloat for the family to make money.
Mm.
So we got into making matching card games. So we're doing
Oh, cool.
card games. Of course, we got the merchandise like the socks. So things like this that are never going to get old is where the company is going to be going. Um, and that
Very
was,
cool.
again, all this is crafted to make sure that we are able to still make money as a family. What else? I mean, it's I'm working on the animation. I'm working on the animation. I'm trying to craft the team together now because I want to turn it into a big movie type of deal.
That's the other
So
thing I meant to ask about. Yeah, so you had, I think on the site it mentioned animation, and so is that's where you're looking to take this, is to
yeah. So the publishing company, we're going to transition into an animation company. I got the stuff in order. I just need a larger team. There are way more people that can bring this to life than I can by myself,
Mhm.
especially the way I need it to have happen. So what I've been doing is pitching out my storyboard to companies like Sony, Pixar, Disney. Haven't heard back from anybody just yet. We had a deal on the table with Hulu and Netflix, but the
Wow.
company that this is and it pissed me off. The company that we signed a contract with, the production company we signed a contract with, they went out of business, right?
Mm.
And they just and when they went out of business, there was no communication between me, Netflix, and Hulu because you have to have like almost like a liaison to speak on your behalf because they don't want to hear directly from the author.
Right.
They want to hear from your lawyer, your representation type of deal. So the production company just they just ruined it for me, and this was supposed to happen like 3 years ago. So once we could take it into the big screen, the silver screen, I would say case closed for me. I would have achieved my goal because, you know, for them to license the copyrights of any book, you're going to be well off, for the rest of your life for real. So that's what I'm trying to do with it next is to, license it out to production companies.
Oh, this all sounds fantastic, man. I think it's such the fact that you had your early success with, with the other book, and then parlaying that into success in a different lane. It's something that is a family endeavor. There's every aspect of this is just a feel good story. I love it. And everything is going to be linked below, so definitely please, everything that you saw here you'll be able to pick up online here, there, everywhere. And in Walmart carries all the merch and stuff too.
No, not the merch. I don't
Just
like I don't like their deals on merchandise.
I can imagine
Um,
that.
and just real quickly, what a lot of people don't understand is uh, Walmart has a return policy in favor of the customer. So as a business, yeah, you may have the insurance and everything, but when you're in the business of making money, you can return this watch damaged, and the money goes right back to the customer, right? So what does that do for me? Oh, I have a damaged watch. I can't do nothing with. So I just lost money on it, even at a wholesale rate. That does
Mhm.
me no good. With the books don't get returned. Like what kind of parent are you if you're returning a children's book? But with merchandise, your kid may have gotten on your nerves. You see, I'm not gonna reward you with that. So we don't do merchandise with Walmart. We just do merchandise on our own end, but we do the books with Walmart.
Gotcha. Gotcha. No, that seems smart. That seems smart. Because I could definitely imagine, if you have something, if you have a huge operation, then you can afford to take, a portion of those losses and
Yeah,
still make up for it with the number of sales. But that makes a lot of sense.
yeah.
So, yeah, so definitely head to babyauthors.com and pick up some socks or a watch or a card game or any of
Bed
it and all of it.
sheets, umbrellas, shower curtains, anything you can think of, go to babyauthors.com. Trust me, we got you. We'll take care of you.
Beautiful. Why don't you let that keep rolling? Let's let everybody know about your socials, the website, the everything. Floor
Uh,
is yours.
All right, my name is Darshaun McAway. I'm the DEO, that is Dad Executive Officer of babyauthors.com. Go to our Instagram, our Twitter, even our Facebook at babyauthors.com. Check us out. We have some fantastic podcasts. We have some phenomenal merchandise. We have things like socks, shoes, bed sheets, shower curtains, umbrellas, hats, anything you can think of, we got it. We want your kids to stay happy and enjoy life, especially with you. So spend that time with your children so they can become competent communicators and have an adventurous life. My name is Darshaun McAway. Thank you for rocking it out with me.
Darshaun McAway, bringing some heat to the channel. I love it. Beautiful, beautiful. Well, thank you once again for gracing the platform. This was a super cool conversation. Like I said, I hadn't even thought about children's books for at least 25 years. So definitely revisiting this topic in this context was really cool. You know, I applaud you for what you're doing. Obviously, you know, it's got its own monetary rewards, but I can tell that that is while that's obviously an upside, that's not what you are. That's not what you're doing. You're clearly looking to not only set up a life in the future for Anaiah, to bring her up right now, and to bestow that to other parents as well, and give them a way to tap into the type of parenting that you do. And I all of it, all the way around, it's just really cool. So I definitely think that you know, one that especially if the animation series comes out, I will be the biggest fan. And again, thank you for coming. And you again, you're doing really cool stuff here.
Hey, thank you, man. Thank you for having me, Lutch. I really appreciate it, man. I'm, you know, I wish the best for you and much success to you. I really appreciate what you're doing. I noticed the hard work, and I just thank you for the opportunity to be able to speak to you.
Thank you. I appreciate that. All right. Well, you have a good one, man.
All right.
Take care. Woo! I get excited by good episodes, man. That was a good conversation. That was really cool. And the fact that, you know, we already talked to Darshaun is, you know, even though it was a very different conversation, a lot of the same things came through. And so seeing, especially if you're a parent and you're not really interested in what Darshaun had to say about dating 10 years ago, that's perfectly understandable. But what I can tell you is, without even without you needing to watch that episode, you can imagine what somebody like him would be saying. He's very, you know, he's very consistent, very genuine, as far as I can tell. You know, I mean, I'm not a mind reader. I haven't actually met him. We've talked for about 2.5 hours in total, maybe a little more. But as far as I can tell, and I'm pretty good at reading people, he is he's a real one. I am again, because of the nature of the content, there's not really much for me to analyze. But just in terms of the whole conversation and the whole endeavor of the Anaiahs Adventure series, like I was telling him, I think it's such a cool idea to begin with, to avoid, you know, that not even the plagiarism thing, but the parallel thinking of just, okay, what are kids interested in? What can kids understand? There's only so much that you can get a kid that you know, there's only so many things that you can explore that a kid is going to be familiar with. And it's not like kids books are a new thing. So, you know, I'm sure in you know, the 1700s, it probably wasn't hard to come up with some completely original intellectual property in a kid's book. But in 2021, then it's got, you know, so much of what can be written for children is already going to be written. And so using his own family as the driving force behind this is not is really cool. And then using that to really see things as see it as a business. And I think the important part of that, what stands out to me, is not just that it's you know, he's doing well with in making it a business, and not just that it's something really beneficial for Anaiah and for any other kid who is going to read this type of stuff, but the fact that all of this was well thought out, all of this was an idea that, you know, I'm sure he had to pivot here and there, and different ideas had to change, but the overall purpose of what he's doing is very clearly, again, well thought out, well planned out, and well executed. And again, I can't highlight enough how I don't know how often you looked in the Walmart book section, but it is not very big, and the children's section is a much smaller part of that. And so there's probably, you know, 1-2 aisles of kids books. And so for him to have all these titles in there is just a real landmark type of thing. And like you said, he's set. One, you know, Walmart's the real deal. There's you know, you can't get much bigger than that. And I really hope to I hope you guys can you know, support this, and I hope some of you really are in the position to take advantage of the stuff that Darshaun is putting out, not only for the benefit of yourselves and your own family, but for baby authors itself, so that they can grow and they can start doing more. And I think that's a real possibility. You know, like he was saying with Netflix and Hulu, and there was a publication issue that fell apart, but it's not like somebody said, no, we don't want this. And I think it sounds like something that people would want. It sounds like something that if I was a parent, that I definitely, and again, you can check out the previous episode, episode 9, where we talk a little bit more about the dating stuff and stuff like that. And you can, Darshaun and I didn't have the same type of experiences in our 20s. Let's put it that way. But so that being said, I think having a family and being a parent is something that if I was in that position, that I would definitely be somebody who needed somebody like Darshaun and somebody's perspective like Darshaun's to come in and help me. So again, I'm not a parent, haven't read the books, so I can't tell you for sure, but based on this conversation, I definitely think that anybody who and it's not even just daughters, just anybody who's a parent, this is a young child. I don't see what the downside of this would be. I'm sure there's other books out there that would be entertaining and educational. I'm not saying that there's not, but what else are you looking for? What else are you looking for? So I thought this was a really, really cool episode. I'm glad we got to do this separate episode. I knew that when he brought it up that it was something that I wanted to talk about, but I'm glad we took it into a separate episode and we're really able to dive into it. I think, you know, from talking about how he is releasing the episodes for the series to grow up with her, and not only conceptually but in the illustrations. That's it's just something that is another touch, you know, that even if they already are good stories, there's another touch that while your child is a year older, so is Anaiah. And that's just I mean, it's something that again, a little touch that I think will or that does set it far above other series. And again, I'm not too familiar with how children's series go. I think that's I don't think that's a common thing. I mean, I saw the movie Boyhood where they filmed over 12 years and they did that. And story aside, that aspect of the movie was one of the selling points, and it was a really cool selling point. And so, you know, going to the book and or the series and having that be a notion that you can grow up with Anaiah. I think that's a something. And again, it doesn't even have to be that your kid is the same age as Anaiah, because the books are evergreen. You know, once the content is out there, whatever age your child is, once your child turns 6 months, then well, I think it was the balloon ride or whatever the first one is, you're ready to go. Whenever you know, your child turns 5 or 6 or whatever age the Anaiah in space, that is it's there for you. So I can't speak highly enough of Darshaun and his work and his what he brings to the platform. He is definitely elevating me as a podcaster in this channel, and so I can't thank him enough. I feel like a doofus just saying thank you, but I really do appreciate it. And he's somebody that I really want to see continued success from, because I think he's making a difference in a way that, even if it's not on a global scale, it could be, and it's something that should be. And so thank you for tuning in to another episode of the I Didn't Read Your Book podcast. If you enjoyed it, please hit like. If you loved it, please subscribe. And let me know what you thought in the comments below. Let me know what you think of the idea of Anaiahs Adventure series. Let me know if you would watch the animations. Let me know if you think the books are something that you could use for your children. And let me know if you would like to hear more about this series. We could do something, about an individual book and dive into the nitty-gritty details of a specific story and why this story works. And there's a million things we could do. Just let me know. I'm here for you guys. I want to build a platform that helps everybody. As I keep saying, a rising tide lifts all boats, and that's all I want. So once again, I am Lutch. Please follow me at IDRYB Lutch on Twitter and Instagram, and like, comment, subscribe, all that good stuff. And I will see you next Wednesday at 10 a.m. for another episode of the I Didn't Read Your Book podcast. Peace.